from CBS Sports.
High drive, center field, hit the wall, grand slam. This is magnificent.
Got a fantasy question? Email fantasybaseball@cbsi.com. Get ready to win your league.
Where fantasy becomes reality.
Now here's Frank, Scott, Chris, and Adam.
Mike Trout, Cody Bellinger, Corey Seager, Adalberto Mondesi, Luis Robert, George Springer, both Martes, the list goes on, of early to mid-round hitters who are currently on the injured list. Welcome in to Fantasy Baseball today on Wednesday, May 19th. Frank Stanfield joined by Scott White. A lot to talk about. Every day there's a lot to talk about, but even more today than ever before. Full slate of action. Of course, Mike Trout is out 6 to 8 weeks, so we'll react to that. We have rankings risers, interesting waiver ads, buy low or heck no. Blake Snell finally went 6 innings. Spencer Turnbull currently has he's not through 7 yet, but he has a no-hitter in the 7th innings. You know, it's just another night in baseball. But before we get to those Tuesday standouts, Scott, let's start with Mike Trout, man, who was a bona fide first-round pick still. You know, some people trying to push him down the board because he doesn't steal bases in Roto anymore. That's fine. It's all whatever. But he has a right calf strain. He is out 6 to 8 weeks.
It's a long time.
I think basically brings us to right after the All-Star break in mid-July.
Yeah.
I know that it makes sense to rush him back before that. Calf strains can be very tricky. Obviously, you know, we're not dropping him because you could still get 2.5 months out of him over the final part of the season there. So what do you think happens now with the Los Angeles Angels? We spoke about yesterday. We didn't think I didn't think any of their prospects would be called up soon, but it might have to happen now. So your reaction to Mike Trout?
Yeah, he was where I saw today that he was worried that he ruptured his Achilles tendon. So obviously it's not bad news as far as that goes, but it's a long absence. I've moved Mike Trout down outside the top 15 in my outfield rankings rest of season, which might actually be kind of high considering we're talking about him missing roughly a quarter of the season. But it's just so hard. You just really can't replace a bat that's that impactful, particularly this season, particularly at that position. So still has a lot of value even in redraft leagues. But yeah, you're going to be without him for a while, probably till the second half, as you said. And that stinks. It's going to be hard to replace him. You talked about how coming into the season, Trout was kind of getting pushed down further than ever to the middle of the first round. But once again, he with his performance, like made us all say, why did we ever doubt him? Because he was better than where he was drafted. He was still as dominant as he always is. So yeah, what the Angels do, I don't know. The guy who got the start in right field today was not Josh Rojas, but the other one, Jose Rojas, the other Jay Rojas in our lives. And he's batting 190 on the year with an OPS of just over 600. So don't think that's going to work in the long run. We talked yesterday about how it doesn't look like just from their strikeout rates that Joe Adell or Brandon Marsh is ready. And I would agree with that, but the Angels may have no choice but to call one of them up and just hope they figure it out on the fly. So Joe Adell, I already had him as one of the top 5 prospects that need to be stashed in redraft leagues. I think that's even more the case now. But at the same time, I'm limiting my expectations for what he's going to do.
Yeah, I stand by what I said yesterday. I don't think that they should rush them. Joe Adell coming into Tuesday had a 40% strikeout rate, and Brandon Marsh had 8 strikeouts in 5 games, and he was just recently coming back from a shoulder injury as well. So, if I had to take a guess, I actually think Brandon Marsh might get here before Joe Adell, just because the way that Adell is striking out. But I really don't think that any of them should be rushed to the majors here. Some potential outfield replacements. We talk about these players quite a bit. We spoke about both of them on yesterday's podcast, but 3 that are rostered in less than 70% of CBS leagues Willie Calhoun now has outfield eligibility. He has actually had outfield eligibility on CBS for quite some time now. Robbie Grossman, who does a little bit of everything, has a very high OBP, and Tyler Naquin, who continues to play for the Reds as long as Joey Votto is out, and maybe even beyond that as well. So, Scott, how would you rank those three if you're just looking for a replacement? Not that Trout is replaceable, obviously, but between Calhoun, Grossman, and Naquin.
I'd rank them like that. Calhoun, Grossman, and Naquin. Calhoun is the one of the three who's going to provide a speed element, but I think the power is most questionable with him. He gets on base a lot. He's always gotten on base a lot. So in points leagues, that elevates him a little. Obviously, the steals elevate him a little in categories leagues. So he has the look of a handy player. We've just never seen Grossman keep it up for a full season before. And Willie Calhoun, I think, yeah, we've talked a lot about how he's being overlooked, and former big time prospect himself, doesn't strike out much, and he's looked really good so far since coming back from the IL.
I just pulled up the Salt Lake Bees box score from Tuesday. That is the AAA affiliate for the Los Angeles Angels. Brandon Marsh went 2 for 5 with a double and 2 runs scored. Struck out once again. Joe Adell went 3 for 5 with 3 singles and an RBI. 0 strikeouts. So both had a nice game there. Progress for Joe Adell. No strikeouts. So one of those guys could be coming soon for the Angels. Scott, if you're in a deeper league and those names are not available that we mentioned, Calhoun, Grossman, Naquin, a few that I saw rostered in 30% or less of CBS leagues, Hunter Renfroe, Harrison Bader, and Josh Naylor. How would you rank those three if you're in a deeper league?
Harrison Bader's kind of interesting. His strikeout rate is way down, and his expected stats look strong, and he has an element of speed himself. So I'd probably take a flyer on him just to see if he can keep it going in a deeper league. I have my doubts looking at his track record, but if he's going to put the bat on the ball more, it makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's played 16 games so far this season, 283 batting average, 4 home runs, 2 steals, does a little bit of everything. So especially in a roto league, Harrison Bader, widely available if you need an outfielder in those deeper formats. We got an email question from Greg, and he asked, it doesn't really have to do with the injury, but it has to do with Mike Trout. So I thought it was interesting. Do I trade Shohei Ohtani, who hit his 14th home run of the season on Tuesday, for Mike Trout in a 3-year keeper league? Draft picks are not affected by keepers. It's an ESPN league where I can get maximum value out of Ohtani as a single player and use him as both a hitter in games he hits and as a pitcher in games he pitches. So this is something that people have pointed out to me on ESPN. Even if you have Ohtani starting in your utility spot in 8 points league, you get his fantasy points as a pitcher, which is just absolutely insane. So
yeah, I mean, I wonder if that's the way it should be. It was like moving mountains to get Ohtani established as he is on CBS right now, where a single player that you could start either as a pitcher or hitter and you know get just that production wherever you started him. That was a big programming hurdle. So I don't know. I don't know if anyone's going to go for anything different now, but I do think that to really get the full value of Ohtani as a player, that's the proper way to do it. And maybe that makes him the most valuable player in fantasy. So be it. If that's the case, he wouldn't have been until this year. It's worth pointing out. But yeah, I certainly understand the argument for that. And I think if Ohtani has the potential to be that valuable in the league, the emailer's in, then I don't know. Probably not. Probably wouldn't trade Ohtani for Trout in that situation.
Oh man, it sounds crazy to say, but I agree with you, right? Like the way Ohtani's playing, he's basically in the prime of his career. He's taking the league by storm now. I assume people are going to adjust to him. I don't look. You throw him more breaking pitches. I guess that's what you do, because even if you throw him fastballs that are like letter high, he's still smacking them out of the stadium. So it's interesting. But yeah. Ohtani in a league where you can get both stats, keep him over Mike Trout for the next 3 years. If you're watching us on YouTube, thank you for being here so late. We are, it's past midnight here on the East Coast. Why are we matching, Scott? We didn't even plan this, dude. Like we're both wearing gray polos. We got like a bit of a comb over thing going on. I kind of feel like we're like Night at the Roxbury-esque right now. We're like the Fantasy Butabi brothers.
I don't know. I wore gray because I was in mourning because Mike Trout's hurt. But
well, yeah, that's fair.
I don't know why you did it.
I had a CBS Sports HQ hit, Scott, because I'm big. Apparently,
you tried to class it up.
I had to class it up. Have you ever seen Night at the Roxbury, Scott?
I haven't, no, but I'm familiar with it nonetheless.
All right. I mean, look, I haven't. There are a million movies I haven't seen, Scott, but Night at the Roxbury. Come on, man.
you act like this is some sort of like crowning achievement of American cinema or something.
No,
I don't think that's the case.
It's like a cult comedy classic, man. That's your homework assignment for the weekend. You watch that, and I'll watch. I don't know. You choose a movie for me to watch, and I'll watch it. But all right, let's get into some of the standouts from Tuesday.
Oh my goodness gracious!
All right, Scott, talk about the man that's on everyone's mind right now.
Well, I wanted to do like a stop the presses moment because Blake Snell had gone 6 innings for the first time since July of 2019. But since you spilled the beans there already at the top, can't be nearly as dramatic about it. For what it's worth, they took him out right after he completed that 6th inning. But yeah, good start against the Rockies, 11 strikeouts. We'll get into Snell later, I'm sure. But my oh my goodness gracious player of the day is Luis Castillo, who did some oh my goodness gracious sort of things in his loss to the Giants. It was a loss, and in that loss, he allowed 9 base runners in 5 innings. He allowed 3 earned runs in 5 innings. So the ERA and the WHIP were both bad in this loss. But Luis Castillo struck out 11 in those 5 innings. Luis Castillo had 21 swinging strikes. Luis Castillo's average fastball was 97.7 miles per hour, 1.5 higher than his season average, and really more like we've seen from Castillo in past years. He himself described this start as not just a step forward, but 3 steps forward. The changeup, which you'll remember in his last start, it looked like he was losing faith in it. He didn't throw it much at all. It was his most thrown pitch. It was responsible for 8 of the 21 swinging strikes. His slider was responsible for 9, so I don't know where that came from, but pretty much everything was on for him. He just had a few too many walks and served up a 3-run homer. But I think, honestly, this may have been the best case scenario for Castillo, for the way Castillo gets back on track, because the net effect of the start is negative for fantasy, right? So if you sat him because you were scared to start him, you were justified in doing so. Also, you still have a chance to buy low, because this start was not good for the person who did start Castillo, for the person who maybe doesn't dig deep into the numbers and just sees another loss, another high ERA, another high WHIP. I think Castillo's back on track. Tuesday is usually my big rankings audit day, and so I was auditing the rankings earlier today. And before this start, I had moved Castillo down to 34th in my starting pitcher rankings. After this start, I moved him up to 25th. Why not all the way up to 15th or whatever? Well, it is just one start, so let's see if he continues with it. I don't feel like you should be have that big of a reaction to a start either way, good or bad. But this is exactly what you want to see from Castillo, exactly what getting back on track looks like, and suddenly much more confident in him going forward.
Yep, and I think you hit on everything there. This is what we needed to see. We needed to see something positive, and of course, the 11 strikeouts, 21 swinging strikes, both season highs for him. The changeup looked much better. He did give up the 3-run home run to Alex Dickerson on the changeup. The catcher wanted it down and away. It kind of leaked over the middle of the plate. But outside of that, I mean, he pretty much looked like Luis Castillo. So if you can continue to buy low, it's something that you should be doing. Oh my goodness gracious, for me on Tuesday, Miguel Sano, triple dong. Looks like the man might be getting hot. However, coming into this game, he was batting 141 with a 37% strikeout rate and a 29% infield fly ball rate. Those are automatic outs. He is 52% rostered. Scott, how much should we react to this big game for Sano? Because we know that he is capable of getting hot and carrying fantasy teams.
Well, I think it's important to consider and to remind yourself just how high the upside is for Sano. Like, he was regarded not too long ago as being one of maybe 5 players who's capable of a 50 homer outcome. You just project out his numbers from 2019, 34 homers in 105 games. He's there, right? So massive power potential for Miguel Sano, as much as anyone else in baseball. But with all the strikeouts and just with all the inconsistencies, he's so high variance that, I mean, it's going to drive you nuts. Like, offense being so hard to find this year, I'm sure most people listening have several holes they could fill, at least if we're talking about a standard roto lineup with all those openings. And him being so widely available, Sano, like, I kind of feel like you have to pick him up just to see if this starts something for him. But the experience could be very frustrating because you could miss out if you play this game where you're moving him in and out of the lineup based on how he's performing lately. You could end up missing out on all the good times.
Yep.
So that's just the plight of the high variance player. It's why I generally don't like rostering them, but you're getting Sano for free if you're in one of the 45% of leagues where he's available. So it's just worth keeping in mind what his upside is.
Mm-hmm. And with Sano, you mentioned he's widely available. He's 52% rostered. Scott, would you drop Tom Smith for Miguel Sano?
I don't believe I would, no.
Would you drop Jeimer Candelario, who is rostered in more leagues than Sano?
I could maybe do that. I guess it depends on how much I'm depending on Candelario already. If he's just kind of a guy hanging out on my bench, then I think that's easier to do than if I'm forfeiting this starter to take the chance on Sano.
Would you drop last one, Ryan Mountcastle for Miguel Sano?
Yeah, I don't see a lot of reason to remain optimistic about Mountcastle right now.
Yeah, Mountcastle just swinging and missing so much. Wasn't really a huge issue for him in the minors, but swinging strike rate among the highest in the league. Strikeout rate over 30% this year for Ryan Mountcastle. So no, he's going to be frustrating. He is someone, if you have in a head-to-head league, man, that's probably the worst format to have him. But in Roto, you pick him up and throw him in there, and by the end of the season or however long he's healthy, he's probably just going to give you a bunch of home runs. So Miguel Sano looks like he's heating up for the Minnesota Twins. The NBA play-in games have already started. Join the Early Edge podcast every single day for the best bets, props, and future bets for this year's postseason. Jonathan Coachman, Mike McClure, and Larry Hartstein won't lead you astray as they bring the best bets to your feed every morning in 15 minutes or less. You can find the Early Edge on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and even live on YouTube. Some news and notes from Wednesday. Christian Yelich returned on Tuesday. I just said news and notes from Wednesday. But these are news items that happened on Tuesday. Christian Yelich returned as the designated hitter for the Milwaukee Brewers. And I'm trying to stall here because I want to figure out what his final line was. He went 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. So, okay. They had a designated hitter because they were in Kansas City. So still not playing the field yet. And I still think they rushed him back. Jacob deGrom felt good following a bullpen session on Tuesday, but the Mets wouldn't commit to activating him off the IL when first eligible this Friday. Cody Bellinger is scheduled to join AAA Oklahoma City for a rehab assignment starting this weekend. Fernando Tatis could return from the COVID IL on Wednesday. Luke Weaver was placed on the IL with shoulder discomfort. Corbin Martin was recalled and started Tuesday against the Dodgers. Martin was the main piece that in the Zach Greinke trade back in 2019. More on him a little bit later on. Had some interesting starting pitcher ads. Maybe.
Was he the main piece, though?
Well,
they're all pretty equivalent.
Him, Seth Beer, and
Josh Rojas, and there was one more.
Yeah, there was someone else.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like he was the main piece. Oh, he was one of the main pieces. He had Tommy John surgery.
I think it was Bukauskas.
Yeah, I think you might be right there. Tyler O'Neill was placed on the IL with a fractured left middle finger. Gleyber Torres is joining the Yankees and could start on Wednesday. Andres Jimenez was demoted to AAA. Ahmed Rosario has started 6 of the last 7 games for Cleveland. Sixto Sanchez increases throwing to 120 feet off of flat ground. He remains at least a month away. Starling Marte resumed hitting off of a pitching machine. Mid-June seems like a realistic timetable for Marte. Eliezer Hernandez began a rehab assignment on Tuesday. He is 40% rostered. And Scott, we got an email from Ryan. He asked, how would you rank these IL stashes between Noah Syndergaard, Carlos Carrasco, Framber Valdez, Tony Gonsolin, Luis Severino, and Eliezer Hernandez?
People love the IL stash rankings, Frank. They love them.
They do.
Carlos Carrasco, I'm putting Noah Syndergaard next since he's basically beginning a rehab assignment at the same point as Framber Valdez. You know what? Has Gonsolin begun his rehab assignment yet?
I saw that he was moved to the 60-day IL, which means he can't return until I think late May.
All right, so I'm going Carlos Carrasco, Noah Syndergaard, Framber Valdez, Tony Gonsolin, Luis Severino, and then Eliezer Hernandez last. And honestly, the fact Hernandez is coming back sooner actually makes it harder to justify ranking him higher, because now you can't stash him in an IL spot. He's got to deliver right away. And I'm the least he's the one that of this group is clearly I'm the least confident in him delivering right away.
Kevin Pillar landed on the IL with multiple facial fractures after getting hit by a pitch in the face on Monday. So it was a rough scene, man. I saw the aftermath. The guy looked like he was in a boxing match. So it was rough there. Kevin Pillar, get well soon, buddy. Cameron Maybin was acquired by the Mets as a result. Anthony Rizzo left Tuesday's game with a tight lower back. Gary Sanchez left with a hamstring cramp is what I heard while I was listening to the Yankee game. Taijuan Walker's MRI came back clean after he left Monday's start with left side tightness. Didi Gregorius was placed on the IL with a right elbow impingement. Michael Pineda was scratched from his start Tuesday as he had a procedure to remove an abscess from his thigh. He could resume throwing on Thursday. Carlos Martinez could return for the Cardinals this weekend or early next week. Nick Senzel was absent from Tuesday's lineup with a sore knee. Scott, you mentioned that you updated your rankings on Tuesday, so let's talk about a few of these players that are rising in the ranks and what we think about them overall rest of season. And we got to start with, man, we haven't talked about him since he returned, but the guy just continues to mash. The Jazz man, Jazz Chisholm, went 2 for 5 with his 5th home run of the season, and it came off of Jose Alvarado. I thought this was a really cool stat from @AndrewSimon MLB on Twitter. There have been 2 home runs hit on pitches at least 100 miles per hour this season. Both were hit by Jazz Chisholm. One was off of Alvarado, and if you remember, the other one was off of Jacob deGrom earlier in the season. So, Scott, I find this very interesting whenever we do this. I updated my ranks as well, and I moved Jazz Chisholm up to 8th at second base. Exact same spot that you moved him up to. Jazz Chisholm now a bona fide top 10 second baseman.
Yeah, I think I already had him there, to be honest.
All right.
When word of his return was spreading, and I think. Look, I still have some doubts about Jazz Chisholm. He's striking out over 30% of the time. That's generally not a formula for success in the majors, but obviously making very high quality contact, and I do think he's going to continue stealing bases at a high rate, unlike, I don't feel like I can assume that for Marcus Semien, who we talked about yesterday. So I actually have Chisholm 1 spot ahead of Semien in my roto rankings, at least. I think it's reversed in points leagues. But yeah, I'm excited to get Chisholm back in my lineup. We'll see. We'll see if he can keep it going.
And Jazz is 84% rostered. I don't know what those 16% of leagues are. Maybe they're like 6 or 8 team leagues, but get Jazz Chisholm on your team if he is available anywhere. The second base position, it's been mostly bad. Up at the top, Whit Merrifield, he's really slowed down, though the overall numbers are still really good, so you can't complain. Albies has come around. Jose Altuve has been solid all year. Max Muncy is having a big May. Ketel Marte is out on a rehab assignment. We spoke about Semien recently. He is red hot in the month of May. And then once you get past Jazz Chisholm, it's Brandon Lau has been pretty bad so far this year. Tommy Edman has been okay. Kevin Biggio has been awful. Jeff McNeil is on the IL. So
I actually moved Edman into my top 10 at second base just because.
Yeah, I have him at 10. He's just solid. He's not great, but he's a someone that just.
Well, he doesn't strike out much for points leagues, and then of course he contributes stolen bases, and he's very versatile. But yeah, the trio I have trouble with every time I update my rankings is Kevin Biggio, Brandon Lau, Jeff McNeil. How far am I going to move him down this week? McNeil on the IL now. That allowed me to move him down a little further. But yeah, I struggle with that. Right now, I think I have him still ahead of Nick Solak and Ryan McMahon. I don't feel great about that, but I don't feel comfortable just burying them either because, I mean, we know how hot Brandon Lau can get. And Biggio, just a unique and useful skill set when he's going well.
Zach Wheeler against the Marlins on Tuesday. 7 innings pitched, 1 unearned run, 10 strikeouts to 0 walks. Of course, comes against the Marlins, though, so take it with a grain of salt, but Wheeler has been great regardless. He had 17 swinging strikes in this game on 92 pitches, down to a 2.52 ERA, a 0.99 whip, and he has gone 6+ innings in 7 of 9 starts. I wrote that you can make the argument that he deserves to be SP 15, just behind Jack Flaherty, Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw. That's for me, at least. And I noticed that you moved them up to SP 16, Scott. So,
oh my goodness,
Zach Wheeler.
Oh my goodness gracious,
Zach Wheeler was he was disrespected. I feel like in drafts just because he was boring, right? Like, people. All right, I don't want to. Boring.
Yeah,
whatever. Kind of like sit on draft boards, but he's been fantastic.
He has been fantastic. It wasn't that long ago that we were talking about whether we should be worried about him, though, just to tell you how quickly things can change. But yeah, amazing 5-start stretch here. 4 of those 5 starts, 7+ innings. I just think I have a lot more confidence in him at this point. I can't guarantee that all of those pitchers I have ranked behind him. In fact, I would wager probably not the pitchers I have ranked behind him being as high as 16th now, will finish behind him. But I don't have a lot of confidence in any particular one ranked behind them to put them ahead of Wheeler. You get what I'm saying here. But yeah, I would still expect a mid-3s ERA, a whip closer to 1.2 than 1, and not much more than a strikeout per inning for Wheeler. So I think that's why I don't really think in the long run we're going to regard him as a top 15 type pitcher. But he certainly is deserving of more faith than a lot of those guys in that same range right now.
Yeah, and he's an accumulator, which there's nothing wrong with. I mean, there are pitchers ranked behind him that could easily be better on a per inning basis, but he just gives you so much volume. I mentioned, how deep he is going into his starts, getting a ton of ground balls this year, up to 47% on the ground ball rate. His swinging strike rate is a career high this year as well. So really nice season for Zach Wheeler. And let's just kind of lump him together with Hyunjin Ryu. I always want to give Ryu more credit than he gets because I feel like he's just so undervalued every season, Scott. And this time against the Red Sox, 7 shutout, 7 strikeouts, 0 walks, ERA down to 2.51, the whip down to 0.99. And he's kind of like Zach Wheeler. He doesn't go, I don't know that he goes as deep consistently as Wheeler does.
No.
But he's just, as long as he's healthy, he's just rock solid.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. But it's a big if as long as he's healthy. He has, he made it 182 and 2/3 innings in 2019, but pretty checkered health history apart from that. So worth keeping in mind. But yeah, the ERA, like coming into this year, Ryu had, I think, the second lowest ERA of the past 3 years behind only Jacob deGrom. So, of course, he's reliable when he's healthy.
Would you look to sell high on him because of that past injury history?
I don't know. I don't really think in that way. No, I I have him 17th in my rest of season starting pitcher rankings. So who are you getting by selling high?
If you can turn him into, I don't know if this is realistic, but say that there's a Lucas Giolito fantasy manager out there, Scott, who has had enough. Would you make that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I have Giolito in my top 12 starting pitchers still. So, yeah, I'd do that. But I think that's also fairly obvious. I don't think you need me to tell you that. You can just look at my rankings.
Nolan Arenado has homered in 4 straight. He is now up to 10 home runs on the season. He is batting .307 with a .944 OPS. We talked a lot about Arenado recently, and he has been climbing up the third base ranks ever so slightly. It's a very stacked position up at the top, so it is harder to move him. But I saw that you have Chris Bryant ranked ahead of him, Scott. I made that swap as well. You have Arenado at 7. I have him at 6 at the third base position. The only difference is I moved DJ LeMahieu behind Arenado. Were you contemplating making that swap?
I was thinking hard about what to do with LeMahieu today. Yeah, because I've just kind of left him there, keeping the faith. Okay, we saw him follow up on that massive breakout. We saw him follow up on it last year. He bats leadoff for the Yankees. Is it still going to work out? Well, quarter of the way through the season, my confidence in that is diminishing. I don't want him to plummet in the rankings, but should he go behind guys like Bregman, Devers, Bryant, Arenado, could certainly make the case. I want to hold out just a little bit longer so that I don't look like a fool and have to move him right back.
All right. Again, DJ LeMahieu and Nolan Arenado there. Let's talk about Nico Hoerner, Scott, who we talked about him a little bit on, I think it was Monday's podcast, as someone that you can add as a Corey Seager replacement. And he went 3 for 4 with 3 singles, 2 runs scored on Tuesday. He's still just 50% rostered. And I noticed he is ranked inside your top 15 second baseman now, rightfully so. It's a position that hasn't been great. Would you drop any of these names for Hoerner? They are all rostered in more leagues than he is. Joey Wendell.
Yes.
Colton Wong.
Yes.
Nick Madrigal.
Yes.
Nick Senzel.
Yes.
All right. So he's close to a must-add, basically.
By the way, you mentioned it in the news and notes. Nick Senzel out with a knee issue. I want to get excited about Nick Senzel. I like what some of the numbers look like this year, but he's just constantly out of the lineup. I don't feel like I can't bring myself to pick him up because I know I couldn't start him.
Yep, it's fair. It's fair criticism.
But yeah, I'm really into Hoerner. I think Hoerner's poised for a breakout season here. I think we were already seeing signs of it before he missed that time with the forearm injury. I'm glad he's come back here and had a 3-hit game. To me, it shows no lingering effects from the injury, hopefully. And I think he needs to be rostered in a lot more leagues.
Mm-hmm. I question the power, Scott. I don't know that we're going to get much from him, but the hit tool looks great thus far. Could provide batting average, probably going to run a little bit, give you some runs scored as well. He hits a good amount of ground balls. So
yeah, I think I could see Hoerner being a better version of Tommy Edman, who, as I said, I just moved inside my top 10 second baseman. So that's kind of what I'm envisioning Hoerner being. Double-digit home runs, potentially, a lot of extra base hits, 20, 25 steals or so. I could see him doing that.
The last one I wanted to mention, Anthony DeSclafani. He got his revenge at the Cincinnati Reds. 7 innings, 1 run, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts, 12 swinging strikes on 107 pitches. DeSclafani has allowed 1 run or less in 6 of 9 starts. The ERA is down to 2.03. The whip is down to 0.92. Getting more ground balls and swinging strikes than ever before, Scott. That is a recipe for success, something we look for often in a starting pitcher. I noticed, he's still ranked pretty low in our pitcher ranks, but at one point, do we start to buy into what we're seeing from him and prop him up in those rankings?
Well, I feel like he's at a point in my pitcher rankings. 80th. That's pretty low. Yeah, I mean, just ahead of him are guys like Alzolay, who I'm hyping all the time. Herman Marquez, who certainly was drafted much higher than that. Rich Hill, who we just talked about being excited to add last week. Andrew Heaney, who keeps having these double-digit strikeout efforts when he's not allowing 3 home runs. Kikuchi. Like that's kind of the same range DeSclafani's in. And I feel like most of those guys I mentioned all have more upside than him.
Yeah.
But
it's a good point. It's a tough spot for him.
If DeSclafani can maintain a 55% ground ball rate, I mean, you mentioned it was higher than before. That's really high. That's among the best ground ball pitchers in baseball if he could do that. And he's going to keep runs off the board. I don't know that he can maintain the strikeout rate. His xFIP, for what it's worth, is 371, which is not bad, but certainly suggests he has room to go down from that 203 ERA. So that's kind of where I stand on DeSclafani. I think he could be a solid mid-range option for you.
Mm-hmm. It's been great. He's been one of those starting pitchers that has been a pleasant surprise this year, in that he's not necessarily in that glob that Chris brought up yesterday, but he's working his way towards it. We are going to take a quick break shortly. If you enjoyed the pod, please feel free to leave a 5-star Apple Podcast rating. Much appreciated. With a question in the review. We do have some APR questions here, Scott, that have been there for a little bit. So I thought we would just answer those real quick. And this one is a grade to trade from Sensei Ray W. Shallow head-to-head categories league. I give Rafael Devers, Garrett Hampson, and Joe Musgrove. Receive Francisco Lindor, Yoan Moncada, and Kenta Maeda.
Nah. I don't really see the justification for that. If we're redrafting today, I'm taking Devers ahead of Lindor.
Yep.
And Musgrove over Maeda, I would certainly have as well. So stick with what you got.
If the trade has already gone down, what would you grade it?
Probably like a D.
All right. This one's from Hugo Robinson. Would you trade Charlie Morton for Luis Castillo?
Would I trade Morton for Castillo? No. I mean, that's easier to answer now than it would have been yesterday, but no.
From Trill 3.0, currently looking to three-peat this season. Nice. The real question I have, one that I wonder every day, when do you guys record this thing? It's up right when I wake up and recaps all the games. Are you nocturnal? Pretty close to it.
Yeah.
Go live on YouTube around midnight each night.
Later and later.
Yeah. Before we start every night, Scott's like, Frank, we got to get started. I'm like, I'm sorry, Scott. There's just so much information I'm trying to pack one down.
Well, see, kind of the backstory of this is I kind of forced this on everybody else. This wasn't like, oh, you guys will be able to put the podcast out earlier. That was just a kind of a good side effect, I guess. But basically, I was in a position for my childcare needs where I had to work at night. And so instead of doing the podcast in the morning like we used to always do, we now do it. We have to do it late enough at night that the games are mostly over, which is very late. So that's why now I've turned us all into night owls, and I feel bad about that sometimes. But nonetheless, here we are.
It is perfectly fine by me, Scott, because I am the furthest thing from a morning person. I sleep on the weekends to like 11 a.m. Like it's bad, but I'm not a morning person, so I like recording later than early in the morning. This one's from Kyle C. from Valpo. Roto League, but points league size starting lineups. You keep up to 12 players, no keeper price, and keep them as long as you want. I'm in first and traded with the commish, who is in last by miles. I sent Luis Robert and John Means for Freddie Freeman and Tim Anderson. Great to trade.
Robert and Means for Freeman and Anderson. Well, I mean, how am I supposed to grade a Robert trade? Because the keeper considerations.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good trade. I mean, I would say it's A. Yeah, an A. I don't know what Robert's going to be long term, and clearly, I mean, even if Robert didn't get hurt, I would still think I'd want the Freeman Anderson side.
All right, this next one's from JBan 12332. Grade the trade 6x6 head-to-head categories with quality starts for pitchers and strikeouts for hitters. Give up Randy Arozarena and Marcus Stroman for Aaron Judge and Tyler Mahle. We got this one last week before Aaron Judge went on an absolute tear, so I guess keep that in mind. But Arozarena and Stroman for Judge and Mahle.
Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah, that's an A plus, Scott.
Yeah, A.
From Hammer and Hank, grade to trade. I give Shohei Ohtani and Yermin Mercedes, who has catcher eligibility, for Rafael Devers and Marcel Ozuna.
I would give that trade. Who wins the trade? That might be pretty close to a C there.
Ohtani is the best player in the deal. I would rank them Ohtani, Devers, Ozuna, Mercedes.
Yeah, and I think Mercedes is a distant last.
Yes.
So I probably the Devers Ozuna side comes out ahead.
Yeah.
But not by much. I'll give it a C+.
C+, exactly what I was thinking. Last one here, grade the trade from Mike was taken. 5x5 head-to-head categories with OBP and quality starts. I gave up Whit Merrifield and Sandy Alcantara. I received Ketel Marte and Luis Castillo.
I think that's...
I feel like I would rather have both players he gave up than the ones he received.
Yeah, not by much. That looks like a C- trade.
Yeah, it's close there. All right, we're going to hit a break, but when we return, some interesting potential ads. And the word interesting is kind of synonymous with deep leagues, deep potential ads here. But we'll do that next on Fantasy Baseball Today. Let's get things started with Tucker Davidson, Scott, from your Atlanta Braves. He made his season debut against the Mets, a Mets lineup that was pretty barren, if we're being honest. But 6 innings pitched, 3 runs, 5 strikeouts. He had 15 swinging strikes on 72 pitches. He is only 7% rostered. Chris Bubich with the Royals up against the Brewers, 6 shutout with 4 strikeouts. He is only 6% rostered. Corbin Martin, mentioned his name earlier. He was at the Dodgers, making his first start of the season. 5 innings, 3 runs, 6 strikeouts. And he was cruising until that final inning. He gave up a 2-run home run to Chris Taylor. I was watching this closely because I really like Corbin Martin. And then the last one, this is a real deep one. Cody Poteet from the Miami Marlins. He's made 2 starts. He's allowed just 2 earned runs over 10 innings pitched with 9 strikeouts. So how would you rank these names, Scott? And what's your interest level? Tucker Davidson, Bubich, Corbin Martin, Cody Poteet.
I don't have much interest at all in Martin, and definitely not Poteet. Sorry, it sounds like you're a Martin guy, but I just don't see it. Davidson and Bubich are both pretty interesting. They're both rostered in less than 10% of leagues. So I don't know that I'm adding either in a standard mixed league, but I was impressed by Davidson's 15 swinging strikes on 72 pitches, and the slider looked really good. And I watched most of that start. It's better than I expected. The Braves may have something in him. Definitely want to see more, but his first 2 starts at AAA this year were also very good. Slider is a pretty recent addition to his repertoire too. And so it's kind of like an Adbert Alzolay situation where he was already a pretty good prospect, and then he introduced a new best pitch. So that always makes things interesting. Bubich is his ground ball rate is like 60% right now. And I understand this was his first start, but it was his 3rd straight appearance of 5 or more innings. So he had a couple long relief appearances in there, basically starts. He allowed a combined 5 hits in those 3 appearances of 5 innings plus, a combined 5 hits. A lot of walks. Not really sure about that, but limiting hits by getting weak contact specifically on the ground. And that is a formula for success. I'd rather him get a lot of strikeouts too. I don't know that he's going to. He was a pretty good strikeout pitcher in the minors with the changeup especially, but we didn't see that really translate to the majors last year. The ground ball trick is new though, so we'll see if he can keep that going. But right now, I'm kind of taking a wait and see approach to both Davidson and Bubich.
We are on Spencer Turnbull no-hitter watch, and what just happened? All right, it was a fielder's choice. I think he's 1 out away.
Oh my gosh.
What? Spencer Turnbull, man. This is the year of the injury, the year of the
I am so rooting against this no-hitter.
Come on. What did old Redbeard do to you, Scott?
Come on, Mitch Haniger. Send one out.
He's up to 114 pitches. He has 2 outs in the 9th. I kind of just want to do play-by-play of this game right now, but we will come back to it. Scott, why no love for Corbin Martin? He has really good minor league numbers, 2.54 ERA and a 1.06 whip in his minor league career. And he threw his fastball a bunch in this start, but it was decent against the Dodgers. Why no love?
Well, we saw him make 5 starts for the Astros a couple years ago and didn't really show anything to get me excited. And he's 25 years old. And, you say really good minor league numbers, but we're talking about, I don't know, let me see here, 2019 or 2018 was his last season with a bunch of stats. And it was like right at a strikeout per inning, which isn't impressing me. I don't know. Why do you like him so much, Frank?
Just for the reasons you mentioned. I think
tables are turned.
The minor league numbers are good. He's right around a strikeout per inning. He gets a decent.
Oh yeah, no, I'm saying only a strikeout per inning.
It's solid.
If you're only doing that against minor leaguers, like what are you doing for me?
All right. So I'm the high guy on Corbin Martin. A couple of people tweeted at me today asking if they should add him in dynasty leagues. I think so. The Diamondbacks have a bunch of injuries right now, and it seems like Martin has an opportunity. Spencer Turnbull just threw a no-hitter in 2021. So congrats to Spencer Turnbull. I mean, it took him like 120 pitches. He's struck out Mitch Haniger for the final out of the game. Do you have any analysis that you would like to add on Spencer Turnbull, Scott? Would you drop Andrew Heaney for him, who put up another clunker on Tuesday?
I don't know. He did have 19 swinging strikes, Turnbull did. 12 of them were on his fastball. I don't know where that came from. The slider, we've seen him get some whiffs with that before. It got 6.
I'm not going to take anything away from Turnbull. And the guy has shown some flashes at times, but this is getting a little embarrassing, man. Wade Miley, Spencer Turnbull. I mean, all right, it was fun the one time Philip Humber threw either a no-hitter or complete game, whatever, no-hitter or perfect game, but this isn't supposed to happen this often, man.
No, it's not. It's just another week. We were due for a no-hitter this week.
It's so weird.
I'm sure Spencer Turnbull and the whole Turnbull clan is thrilled, and I'm happy for them. But
Spencer Turnbull is only 17% rostered in CBS League, Scott. What should that number be?
I mean, his last start was great too. His ERA is down to 2.88, but we've seen him, several years now. He's pretty mediocre, and he was looking that way before these last 2 starts. So I'm highly skeptical. I'm probably more interested in Turnbull than I was at Wade Miley after his no-hitter, but that's not saying much.
I don't know. Did you answer this question already? Would you drop Andrew Heaney for him?
I don't think I would. Nah.
Turnbull is, if the scheduling is correct on CBS, in line for a 2-start week next week against Cleveland and the Yankees. That adds some. They're both at home, which America.
I mean, look, I'm not a big Heaney guy, so
yeah,
I wouldn't be mad if you wanted to do it, particularly if you're trying to maximize your number of starts there that you're getting in 1 week. I just don't think there's much staying power here with Turnbull.
Some interesting potential ads on the hitter side of things. Let's talk about 3 Tampa Bay Rays. Ji-Man Choi hit his first home run of the season on Tuesday. He now has 4 hits in his first 2 games. He was batting 3rd in the lineup in both of those games, and they were both against a right-handed pitcher. I don't think he's going to play against lefties. He's only 7% rostered. Yandy Diaz went 2 for 5. He has 9 hits over his last 5 games. He does not have a home run on the season because he has a 55% ground ball rate. And Mike Zunino, he had a double dong against the Baltimore Orioles. He's now up to 10 homers. He's averaging, interestingly enough, 2.6 fantasy points per game, which is tied for 10th among catchers. Basically because every one of his hits is a home run. So Ji-Man Choi, Yandy Diaz, Mike Zunino. Scott, any interest?
I mean, Zunino needs to be rostered in 2 catcher leagues. I assume he already is. For a while there, I was favoring Francisco Mejia over him. Fortunately, in one of my 15-team leagues, when Mejia got hurt, I was able to drop him for Zunino, and I see no reason to switch back. Puts the ball in the air a ton. It's been hitting it hard enough this year that enough of those fly balls are traveling over the fence. So in the long run, I expect him to have a batting average below 200 still, but hopefully with a lot of home runs.
A few other hitters that popped on Tuesday. Alex Dickerson, he went 3 for 3 with his 4th home run of the season, hit that 3-run homer off of Luis Castillo. He is 42% rostered, which actually seems high to me. I was surprised to see that number that high. Miguel Andujar went 2 for 4 with 1 RBI and 2 runs scored. He has started 4 of the last 5 games for the Yankees, and he has 5 hits during that span. He is 10% rostered. And then Odubel Herrera has 11 hits over his last 7 games with 1 homer, 1 steal during that span. Again, these are more deeper league options, Scott, but Dickerson, Andujar, Odubel Herrera.
I would, of those, my favorite is probably Dickerson, but we know he's not going to play every day. Yeah, I'm not moved really by this group.
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, Andujar a couple of years ago, he had a great season for the Yankees, but he's kind of just been lounging around in the minors since then, and he doesn't really have a position. He's been playing the outfield for them, and they have some injuries. So if you play in a deeper league, sure, you want some cheap exposure to the Yankees lineup. Miguel Andujar is that, but he's once everyone's healthy, he's probably not going to be playing every day. Buy low or heck no. We'll do this quickly for some of these names. Scott, Lourdes Gurriel has 4 straight multi-hit games, and I think we're getting closer to that buy low window potentially closing.
Yeah,
his career OPS by month, I noticed in March and April, 576. In May, 685. In June, 1088. Go get Lourdes Gurriel now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's one season is doing the heavy lifting there, and I know he happened to get really hot in the middle of that season. But yeah, I mean, we've been calling him a buy low for a while now. He seems to be making us look good here. Hopefully it's not too late.
How about Eduardo Rodriguez, Scott, who was at the Blue Jays on Tuesday? He allowed 11 hits and 5 runs over 5 innings pitched, gave up 9 hard hit balls. The ERA is 6.00 over his last 4 starts, but the underlying numbers are much better. 3.31 expected ERA, 3.22 xFIP. Buy low or heck no on Eduardo Rodriguez.
Yeah, I guess buy low. He'd been so yucky lately that I was kind of wondering if he's somebody to consider dropping, but I have a lot of faith in xFIP. If his xFIP says he should have an ERA pretty close to 3, and the xERA backs it up. I don't have a lot of faith in xERA to be predictive anyway. But they both say he deserves much better than he's gotten, so that counts for a lot with me. I think the one thing I'd caution there is that his walk rate is unusually low this year, which is certainly bolstering. Well, I'd imagine it's bolstering both those numbers, and I'm not sure if he can sustain that, but. Even so, I think we deserve to. I think Rodriguez is worth sticking with a little longer.
Yasmani Grandal is 3rd in baseball with 34 walks. He is having such a weird season, Scott. He's batting 141. I think his OBP is over 350, but he hit his 5th home run of the season on Tuesday. In May, I looked at his May numbers. He has an 80% fly ball rate in May. Buy low or heck no on Yasmani Grandal.
I would buy low, in part because there just aren't enough good catchers, and there's a chance, particularly with the walking like he is, that if he gets hot and returns to being Grandal of old, I mean, maybe he's a top 5 catcher rest of season. And I think you could buy low enough that it doesn't really matter if he doesn't bounce back, and if this is the beginning of the end for him.
The last name is Jameson Taillon, who was at the Rangers on Tuesday. He allowed 4 earned runs over 4 1/3 innings pitched. He has gone more than 5 innings in a start just once in 8 tries this season. The ERA is up to 5.73. Like Eduardo Rodriguez, Scott, the underlying numbers much better for Taillon, but we keep telling people to buy low, but the results are not coming for him. So what do you think?
They haven't yet. I still think they are. He's missing a lot of bats. The advanced stats all like him. I think eventually you're going to be happy with your investment in Taillon. And if somebody dropped him in one of my leagues, which I think is probably more likely than me trading for him, but if that happened, I would gobble him up right away.
Scott, what do we do with Patrick Corbin? He allowed 3 runs on 8 hits over 5 innings pitched at the Cubs on Tuesday. He had 13 swinging strikes on 87 pitches, which is actually a fair ratio. The fastball velocity came back down to earth. It, was around 93 miles per hour last time out, and we got excited about it.
It was fine Corbin. It wasn't like 2020 Corbin, which was way down.
I just feel like I keep flip-flopping.
No.
Ultimately, I think that Patrick Corbin is nowhere close to the pitcher that he once was. And if he puts together a stretch where he looks okay, I would still try to sell him if you can get something for him. That's my take.
So I read this differently. I thought this was another encouraging start from Corbin. Obviously, the results weren't as good as the last one, but the underlying stats again looked more like 2019, 2018 Patrick Corbin than 2020 or early 2021 Patrick Corbin. Of the 13 swinging strikes, 9 were on the slider, which was his most used pitch again. Now, that's the formula of success for Corbin. And, obviously not every start is going to be a gem when he's doing that. That was the case even in his good years. But I think coming off the start where we saw a big change in the effectiveness and the fact that mostly carried over to this start, even if the result was worse, I still think that's a good sign for Corbin, and I'd still be buying on him right now.
All right, Scotty, buy low for me. Heck no on Patrick Corbin. Let's take a look at some of the West Coast action. A lot of West Coast games on Tuesday here. Ramon Laureano had a double dong. He's now up to 10 home runs. Kyle Tucker hit another home run. He is up to 10 home runs as well. I had Spencer Turnbull update here. Surprise. He threw a no-hitter. But no, we didn't really give out the final line there, Scott, but he did go 6 innings for the first time since, July of 2019. So what did you see from Blake Snell? How encouraged are you by this performance?
Well, it was against the Rockies away from Coors Field. So I think you have to start there. But, it was the best we've seen from Blake Snell this year, I think pretty clearly. Missed a lot of bats. We know he's capable of missing a lot of bats. I don't know that this really changes my opinion on him. I think he's been overrated for a couple years now. Obviously, he still has a good arsenal and can still have a really dominant start every now and then, but not efficient. It's obviously rare that he goes the minimum required for a quality start. And I think it's hard to justify starting him every week because of that. I think he's at best a second-tier pitcher and probably at this point more like a third-tier pitcher in my mind.
Yeah, I benched him wherever I had him this week, and I told myself I wouldn't be mad if he had a good start. It was kind of similar to the Luis Castillo situation, not to the same extent, but one of those where I want to see him perform well on my bench. I won't be mad about it if he does. And then maybe you build off that confidence and you could start him for weeks to come. So Blake Snell finishes with 11 strikeouts to just 1 walk over 6 innings pitched against the Rockies. And that's the biggest key. It's the strikeout to walk ratio there. 16 swinging strikes on 97 pitches. Some bullpen updates for the Giants. Jake McGee got his 11th save. That was after Tyler Rogers got the last 2 saves, but Tyler Rogers had worked 4 of the last 5 days for the Giants. For the Braves, Will Smith allowed a go-ahead home run to who? Tomas Nido in the 9th inning. The ERA is 4.76. Any concern for Will Smith, Scott?
Not really. No, I don't feel like his role's in jeopardy. There aren't a lot of other places the Braves can go with that. I think he's just going through a little bit of a rough patch here.
For the Mets, Edwin Diaz got his 7th save. For the Cubs, Craig Kimbrell his 8th. For the Cardinals, Alex Reyes his 12th. For the Royals, Josh Stallman. They haven't had a save opportunity in a while. They had one over the weekend, but he had been used a couple of days in a row before that. They tried to go to Wade Davis, didn't work out well. But Stallman gets his 4th save. He's only 42% rostered, Scott. Should that number be higher?
Yeah, I can understand why it's so low, because just when it seemed like he was firming up the role, they did a silly thing and brought him in the 7th inning of a game. That was early in May, and he was bad, and they haven't had a save chance since. So we're kind of stuck on neutral there with Stallman. But prior to this outing, him getting the save, I think he had finished like 3 or 4 games in a row, including back-to-back days. He closed out a 4-run lead. So I think he's pretty firmly in that role still for the Royals, the closer role.
All right, Scott. I'm going to bring smile to your face, I think.
Okay.
For Cleveland on Tuesday, Emmanuel Clase was not used for the save. James Karinchak got his 4th save of the season, the ERA down to 0.49. But what was interesting about this was that Clase has only been used once over the past 4 days. So theoretically, he should have been available for this. I know he's been struggling with command recently, and the walks have been up for Clase. He's got a 1.00 ERA, but a 1.50 whip. Could be nothing. It could be all right. We're giving Clase a day off, mental day, get right. But it's noteworthy, Scott. It is noteworthy. Uh-oh.
I'm trying to do the Jack Nicholson gif I always use. I think it's from Anger Management. He's like, yeah.
That's one of the best. Yeah. That is one of the best gifs.
Yeah. That's my most used one probably. Yeah. I hope it's a changing of the guard because I think Karinchak's better than Clase. Actually, I think I'm more invested in Clase at this point because I was able to pick him off waivers in a few leagues, so maybe I shouldn't be rooting against him. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird, like you said. I don't know if maybe I would guess there was some reason Clase wasn't available, but maybe not. I think we'll just have to wait and hear more.
Let's wrap up with to stream or not to stream, Scott, and we will start with Wednesday. Do you remember who you told us to use on yesterday's podcast? Let's find out. Wade Miley versus the Giants, Garrett Richards at the Blue Jays, Brad Keller versus the Brewers, Tarek Skubal at the Mariners, Matt Shoemaker versus the White Sox, and Jake Arrieta versus the Nationals.
Who did I say yesterday? I think I said Brad Keller, Garrett Richards, Wade Miley. Though Skubal, he might throw a no-hitter at Seattle. You never know. You can never be sure.
You never know. How about for Thursday? Dane Dunning versus the Yankees. Johnny Cueto, revenge. He's been away from the Reds for a while. But Johnny Cueto at Cincinnati. Drew Smyly versus the Pirates. Vince Velasquez versus the Marlins. Luis Garcia at Oakland. And Cole Irvin versus the Astros.
Well, the wrong pitchers have the wrong matchups here. So, just in terms of how good I think the pitchers are, Luis Garcia at Oakland, Cole Irvin against the Astros, man, that's a dangerous matchup.
Sure is.
I don't really love these, going to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're making me pick a third, I'm going to say Vince Velasquez versus Miami.
All right. For Scotty and Frank, thank you all for listening and watching Fantasy Baseball today. We'll be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.